Hello, welcome to Comic Beat Insider, the weekly live stream YouTube podcast about movies, comics, and chitter chatter. Coming up on a year of doing it, so I have to have yes. And this always happens.
We were coming up on a year anniversary, I should say. That's right.
That's right.
So we're gonna have a virtual party. I don't know, something.
Okay.
You want to start over? So we're gonna do? Or
Okay, I'm having some technical difficulties, as I so often do. I see why I'm having problems. Okay.
We'll start over. No problem.
Okay. All right. I'm going to have to cut that part out. So we will say, hi, welcome to Comic Beat Insider, the weekly live stream podcast about movies, comics, and whatever else we feel like talking about. Coming up, episode 49, almost a year of doing this. Mm-hmm. I'm Heidi McDonald, the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com.
And I'm Jimmy Aquino, the host-producer of the weekly podcast Comic News Insider, covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture at comicnewsinsider.com.
Hi, Erin Crosby, back again. Super excited to join the panel. Can't wait to talk about Popeye.
And joining us?
Hi, Johanna, Draper, Carlson. I run comicsworthreading.com, and I'm excited to be the special guest for the Popeye discussion.
Yay!
Fondness for this movie.
Oh, well, as we just revealed, the topic this week is Popeye, the 1980 film directed by all-time great Robert Altman, starring Robin Williams, Shelly Duvall, Paul Dooley, Paul Smith, based on Elsie Seeger's Great Thimble Theater, a script by Jules Pfeiffer, the EGOT. Yeah. The songs by Harry Nielsen. Mm-hmm. There's a town that still exists behind me.
Malta,
in Malta. This movie, when it came out, it was known as one of the all-time bombs. But in the 40 years since it came out, I guess it's kind of taken on a second life as, to some, a beloved classic. To others, a quirky, weird movie. And I'll say, just rewatching it last night, probably for the first time in 30 years, my number one thought was, what were they thinking? Man, I could go back into the minds of the people who made this movie. And
lots of hands in the pot. Yeah.
You realize it was produced by Robert Evans, who shortly got busted for drugs and money laundering. So.
Well, there's obviously some drugs involved in this, and which we'll get into. Robert Evans was actually the producer, was actually busted for cocaine during this.
He was head of Paramount at the time.
Yes, right. So apparently the genesis of this movie was that Annie was a huge hit, and at Paramount they were
musical,
yes, we want to make a musical too. And then Robert Evans and a coke-fueled bender said, or somebody said, oh, well, we own Popeye. And so he was like, well, that would make a great musical. And and then...
Well, I think they were in a bidding war for Annie, and they lost, is what it was. Paramount lost. So they're like, what else do we... Evans was like, what else do we have? That's my Robert Evans. And and I think someone just randomly in the boardroom was like, we have Popeye. It's like, great, let's do it. And it's like...
Well, and that's what's so interesting, because Annie was already like a huge phenomenon on stage.
Yeah.
So it shows a little bit of like hubris, where they were like, oh, we'll just create a musical.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't always work that way. Like, it takes a long time to create something that's really fabulous, and especially go through like the process on stage. And then they're just like, we'll figure it out. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah. And it's also like, hey, Depression era comic strips. Those are great raw material for movie musicals. Why not?
Erin didn't properly introduce herself. She is a musical theater performer, has done off Broadway, amazing singer. So she knows her musical stuff for sure.
Yes.
But it's interesting you bring that up, Heidi, because there's a lot of scenes in this movie that really reminded me of watching 30s era movies.
Oh, yeah.
So, that we're all pulling together to get through the Depression, especially after, spoiler, the house gets destroyed and they're trying to pay off the back taxes. So we're gambling and we find this kid and this found family, and all these aspects have shown up in 30s films. So they did.
To bounce off that, this was Bill Irwin's film debut, and the fact that he was famous for his vaudeville type show, and the fact that they cast him made me go, that's exactly what they were going for. They wanted to have that kind of 30s performer doing that vaudeville kind of shtick in the background.
He is such an amazing clown in the classical sense. I mean, just every time he was on screen, I just wanted to watch whatever he was doing.
Yep.
Just the physicality.
There's a lot
for
to
sure.
watch on screen in every single frame of this. And
It's
it was
pretty.
Robin
It's got a cool
Williams.
set.
It was his movie debut as well. And you know, one of the thoughts, I'm sure we'll get into this, but one of the thoughts that I had after watching this was, man, I'm so sad Robin Williams never made another musical, because you can see, you know, his
What?
Didn't?
He did Aladdin.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was saying. Okay, I was like,
he
didn't
did, but not
Okay.
as a human. I mean, his
Sure.
physicality in here is
Oh.
amazing, you know? I mean, it's obvious there are, you know, some doubles for some of these crazy Popeye.
Oh yeah, he wasn't doing that tumbling. That was a totally
Right.
different human being.
Right, but I mean,
What?
you see him.
He was an Olympic level gymnast. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
I think I doubled for Bruce Lee. Let's put it that way. But but you know, you see him dancing, and you see him just with his physical shtick and singing, and I mean, he would have been amazing. He would have been
Yeah, I
amazing.
think it would have too. Yeah,
And-
I'm very surprised that he hadn't done one.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not just any musical. I mean, the music. Oh my God!
it's barely a musical. I mean, it's really not. To me, I'm like,
I wouldn't call
no
this a
song-
musical.
No, me neither. No song is actually sung. They're all kind of talked.
But
You
yet
know?
I knew all of them.
I didn't remember.
To
any
this
of them.
day, my mom and I sing, "He's large."
Large.
We've sung that my entire life.
That song's about something else. I'm just saying.
I
Anyway,
know, but like, he's large. We've always done that. I don't know why, but yeah.
I'm like, Olive was the size queen. But anyway, but it's like, yeah, I didn't. Okay, we usually talk about it when we first saw this, and it's like, I definitely saw this as a kid because old, and it was anytime it's something that appeared on HBO, we would watch it 100 times. You know, I probably watch it 20, and I had fond memories of it because I love Popeye the Sailor Man. I love the cartoon. I love the comic strip. I always, you know, proud to the finish because I eat me spinach. You know, always did that, and you know, something my mom and everybody would always say, eat your spinach. And so rewatching this is the first time rewatching it, like Heidi said, in probably like 100 years. And I usually do a deep dive when I do these and watch it 2 or 3 times. Watched it once.
That says a lot about how you feel, Jimmy. It really does.
I
So
did not recall it being as slow as kind of it was.
Yeah.
Argue that
It's a little long.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be 2 hours.
Way too long.
Mm-mm.
Way too
There's
long,
so much in it. That's the thing. I really started thinking about it as a comic strip because I think everybody does know the cartoons, and the fact that it starts with a cartoon beginning with it was kind of weird to start.
The original voice actor, yeah.
Yeah, Jack Mercer. As a comic strip, you just kind of follow the lives of these characters, right? There's not really a plot, and the movie kind of has that same feel. I mean, there are conflicts and there are things they are trying to resolve. You know, Popeye looking for his dad, which I am so tired of in comic stuff. That's so overused. You know, the baby and what's Olive going to do? What's the family going to do? And there's all these weird plots going through it. But it really has that kind of rambly feel, which I think is also a trademark of Altman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's a great way to look. It really does feel like little vignettes, like little comic strips, like you said. That's a perfect way to look at it. Yeah.
Well, let's go back a little to the origins of this because, but you know, we should let's just go around like we normally do. Kick this off with the first time we saw it, and you know, Jimmy went, and you know, I remember like this came out in 1980 when I was a kid, but I do remember among comics folks there was a lot of excitement about this movie because you know, based on number one, Popeye, the comic strips created by E.C. Seeger. And he, this strip was insanely popular during its day. And it's given us so much language. You know, Eugene the Jeep was a character. That's where the word Jeep comes from. For
the movie,
the spinach, on olive oil. And it was really, I mean, this movie is very true to the feeling of Seeger's strip, which is very, like Johanna's saying, it was this long running, all these characters coming in, coming out. And then it was developed into the very famous Fleischer cartoons, which are just incredible.
Awesome.
And that's where they developed this, Popeye, this mumblecore,
mumblecore.
And I mean,
he's the original mumblecore.
He is the original mumblecore. But I mean, there's all this muttering and shouting and sound effects. And I mean, that also came together perfectly, as an influence in this movie. And so you had these two very strong, perfect kind of versions of this Popeye character to begin with. And now you have Robert Altman, who out of the 70s, I mean, one of the all-time great directors, no question about it. But McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which by the way is the same plot as this movie. MASH, Oscar winner for Nashville, Health. Jesus, Brewster McCloud, one of my favorite Altmans. The Long Goodbye, one of my absolute all-time favorites. But and then Three Women, also, a weird movie about a dream he had. But I mean, at the end of the 70s, he was Oscar-winning filmmaker, known for his ensemble movies that had a lot of overlapping dialogue. That was his trademark. So why did he direct Popeye? This is
also sort of notoriously sometimes a little difficult to work with.
Yes.
People, yeah.
Yes. Well, Robin Williams called it, Stalag Malta.
Stalag Popeye or something.
Yeah.
Like that,
And
Stalag Altman. Yeah.
Yeah, Stalag. But I mean, he was a great auteur, and this is the only, massive pop culture movie he ever made, obviously. And Robin Williams was super hot coming off of Mork and Mindy. I mean, he was a rising star.
I loved Robin Williams as a kid. I love Robin Williams. I saw his stand-up special way too young and watched it over and over again, like at the one live at the Met when I was like,
But anyway, I digress a little bit. So anyway, this was a big movie coming out of the comics. I probably didn't see it until it was on TV in the late 80s. And then I was just kind of like, huh? I mean, it is just gobsmacking, but it was known, as I mentioned, as a flop. There's books of Hollywood's greatest flops. It actually didn't lose money, but it was just
it had like a $20 million budget and did 40 or something like that.
For the time it wasn't that bad. But I went on a long way. Erin, where was your first Popeye?
Oh, it made a $20 million budget and made 60.
That's great.
That's pretty good.
That's a lot. That's a hit.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, it's a flop. Like, it's a flop in the studio's eyes.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Well, this movie came out the year I was born, so I did not see it when it came out. But I'm an 80s baby.
She's a baby.
But I believe the first time I probably saw it, though, I was 4 or 5. So either it was on television, or if I'm really remembering right, I think my mom probably rented it at the local video store. And we probably kept it too long because I was instantly obsessed with it. Because around the same time I watched this for the first time, it started airing about a year before Fairy Tale Theater, Shelly Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, which I, to this day, watch them, love them. They're my absolute favorite thing. So I become, at probably age 4 or 5, the biggest Shelly Duvall fan possible. And and I loved it so much. So that was the first time I, probably really listened to it. And what's interesting is I'm going back, is I looked at this entire cast and the amount of people she took from this cast and later cast in Fairy Tale Theater over the years. What it made me think of was this experience had to be a huge moment in her life because they're all stuck in Malta. And I think she developed some real friendships, which then later she used for the rest of her professional life while she was a producer with all the people from this cast.
I keep seeing little baby Erin and her mom at the video store like, Mom, can we rent The Shining? No. No, Erin, you can't get The Shining. Sorry, no. But Shelly Duvall.
I bet I wasn't picking them out, but my mom has pretty good taste in movies. So I was watching Clue before I should have been allowed to as well. I should, you know what I mean? I was watching Young Frankenstein before I should have been. Like all these things, like I understood all those jokes very early.
Yeah, from she's a theater kid, that's for sure.
Yeah. Johanna, how about you?
I don't recall. It was most likely similar to Jimmy's experience, that it was showing up on HBO and saw it at that point. I was not really a fan of the comics in any way until Crisis and after. So this would have been a little bit earlier for me to tag into it that way. But I just remember, the visuals is what's always gotten me. And we haven't mentioned one of my favorite parts of the movie, which is Ray Walston as Poop Deck Pappy, because, we talked about it being long. It's over 2 hours. It does kind of lag. But then that last half hour where he shows up and there's all the bizarre sort of
oh my God,
really sort of ends it on a high note for me. So
I have to say, like when Poop Deck Pappy shows up, like you could see him and Robin Williams just playing off of it. And Robin Williams
100%.
is
Yeah.
I was able to go,
little-
oh, this was improv, and they kept it because
Oh.
it's like it's 100% them having a blast.
Yeah, Altman.
And-
Altman got really annoyed because Williams is famous to improv, and you could tell half those mumbles were improv. And like Altman apparently get really annoyed that he kept doing it, and they had to like redub his line, almost all his lines.
Well, he does the thing that later was used by Joe Pesci in Home Alone, where he's not cursing. He's just doing that res a center and a front of center. You know what I mean? Like that, that like
awesome.
fake curse. And he's doing it the whole movie, like just under his breath, fake cursing. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And there's under his breath, like little asides, like, what do you mean? It's
It's
just like a whole monologue. He does under his breath, and it's great. It's great. Yeah, he's fantastic. He's great.
Yeah. But another thing that struck me about this movie, though, I mean, we try to go through the plot a little bit. I mean, the plot's pretty thin, but there's just all these great set pieces in it. And, again, Altman was known for his ensemble movies. MASH is this movie reminds me visually of MASH, which, I mean, it's very gray. It's not, so my picture behind me is the village as it exists today, because they built this set on the Isle of Malta.
And never tore it down.
Never tore it down. It's a tourist attraction, but, it's way more colorful than it is in the movie.
Yeah.
The movie does, as Johanna was saying, has that kind of depression gray, and it opens on a stormy sea and a little boat out there, and coming in, it's very ominous. So the dinghy hits the shore, and out comes Popeye.
Nailed it.
So great.
Heidi, talking about it as I was watching it this time, you know what reminded me of, and I think it's maybe it's stylistically the era, but it reminded me of, I think it was the 78 or 79 version of Pippi Longstocking.
Oh, I've never seen that.
It's so similar in like this kind of ramshackle, kind of adventure-y looking feeling place. It reminded me a lot like of that.
Well, that's funny is that like
What
it was William Scott obviously, but apparently they really wanted Dustin Hoffman in the original playing opposite Lily Tomlin, which I could see Tomlin doing it, but Hoffman, but then he dropped out because I think he had difficulties with Altman and or Pfeiffer's script or something like that. They even thought of Gilda Radner at one point too, but her manager talked her out of it because of both Altman and Evans' involvement. And he was like, no, you're gonna have a hard time working with those guys. So why?
Well, and Shelly Duvall is just the most perfect casting.
She's
perfect.
I mean,
But one thing I want to talk about in terms of influences as well, that early scene where he's walking up, and you've got the classic thing of the guys trying to move the piano and the netting. And when it comes off the bridge, you're thinking, okay, it's going to be dropping a piano gag showing he's strong. It doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And with the swing and the ducking and the repetitive of that, it really reminded me of Buster Keaton.
Oh,
yeah.
A physical stunt that you need the perfect timing and the perfect belief in the props to do that. And so that really set me up for, again, I was really enjoying the physicality and the visuals.
Yeah, it had a very Abbott and Costello feel to it. That reminded me of,
Well, they don't, the first like 15 minutes of the movie, we don't have a close-up of anyone. And it's just this ensemble. It's just like we see the town. I mean, they sing this song about Sweet Haven, the name of the town.
Quote, sing. Anyway.
Quote, sing. All right. Well, let's just jump into the Harry Nelson. Okay, first off, I did never realize until I was prepping for this that Harry Nelson and Harry Chapin are two different people. Okay, so that's important. Okay, so now I know Harry Chapin is the Cats in the Cradle guy. Okay, but Harry Nelson,
the lime and the coconut guy.
Yes, the lime and the coconut. I did not realize that Harry Nelson was that without you, guy, and he was a really good songwriter. You might not know this from watching Popeye because. I mean, how
the songs are terrible. I'm sorry. They're terrible. None of them are memorable.
What about
the lyrics? Song. He needs me. 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 He needs me.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. I mean, how poetic, Jimmy.
Come on. I mean.
Like it's like they went into a room and they went, that's fine. And they just moved on to the next song. Like they just kind of did their first run at a song going, we'll just put the real lyrics in later, and never did.
Yeah, Pfeiffer hated the music apparently, and yeah, had lots of issues with it. So
Johanna, what were you gonna say?
No, I was saying that it sounds like Nielsen. If you've heard his other works, particularly his self albums, I mean, it's got the same feel as to the rest of his music, musically at least. I mean, I'm not going to argue with the lyrics. Yes, they are very repetitive. Yes, they are more talking than singing. But if you ask me to identify it, I'd be like, yes, that is Nielsen. So if they hired him for that, then they got what they wanted.
All right,
And apparently later on they put out an album that had like all the takes of this, and like where they're in the studio singing them, and we hear his directions to Shelly Duvall and everything, and apparently this is a beloved. There's some songs that didn't actually make the film. I have not listened to this. I might go back, and I will say, the song He Needs Me obviously got a second life in Punch Drunk Love, which is where I watched that a couple years ago, which I had never seen, and the use of the song there was like stirred all these memories of Popeye, and these repressed memories of the film. And then just recently there was a a profile of Shelly Duvall, and where she is, and she's had some ups and downs, but it's like as Erin was saying, I mean, Fairy Tale Theater was fantastic, and she's really a great producer, actress.
I have a couple of pieces of Nielsen trivia I want to share.
Oh, okay.
Just because this is why I know anything about Nielsen. He was able to make a go of a songwriting as a career when he wrote Cuddly Toy for the Monkees, and it became a hit. He also wrote Daddy's Song, which was used in the Monkees movie Head, and he is most famous for rooming with John Lennon in LA and going out and getting drunk a lot together.
Wow.
Well, he also, look, there's
great trivia.
substance abuse involved in this film. And some people, I guess Nielsen had an alcohol problem. And some people warned against working with him because they said is that the reason why? I mean,
that makes sense.
Like, no longer with us.
I think a lot of these people were stuck in Malta for a bunch of months. I think everyone had dipped into the alcohol, and I think it's how they all became friends.
Yeah.
Because I think it seemed like not like a great situation for anybody involved.
But I will say Nielsen also had an apartment in London that was kind of a crash pad for people, and both Mama Cass and Keith Moon died in this apartment.
Oh my God.
Oh Jesus.
And then he was like, I guess there's bad mojo, and he moved out of the apartment.
Yeah. If your friends keep dying, there might be time.
If your friends keep dying.
It definitely sounds like a lot of these songs definitely sound like a drunk tried to I got a great song, guys. It goes like this. He needs me. He needs me. He needs me.
The fact that he named the song I Am What I Am and not long before that La Cage aux Folles came out of I Am What I Am.
Yeah.
He didn't even try.
I know. I Am What I Am.
Before that, though,
it's from the comic
from the Popeye comic.
No, I understand, but it's.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
He could have just called it I Am.
Yeah.
So, but I mean,
you know what I mean? But he had to call it I Am What I Am, the exact same title as another famous song, but adding yam.
So, again, I love to be in the room when some of this stuff was happening. And I guess that's why these these studio sessions for the musical are beloved. And, let's just talk a little bit about the screenwriter, Jules Pfeiffer, who is obviously, he won an Oscar. He wrote Carnal Knowledge, Little Murders on Broadway, an incredible cartoonist for the Village Voice. Got to start with Will Eisner. Very influential in giving comics their due.
He wrote a bunch of Fairy Tale Theaters.
Yes, he's just great.
Sorry, I love it.
No, he's an all-time great. I mean, I think he is like an EGOT. I think he won all the awards there were to win. Maybe, I mean, he came pretty close. Let's put it that way. And so when he was brought on to write this Popeye movie, obviously he understood the source material inside and out. And I would argue that kind of given that this is a pretty great script, whatever remains of it, I mean, he stayed incredibly true to Seeger's creation and vision.
I was sad that we did not get Popeye's first line in the comics, which is they show up and they go, "Oh, look, a sailor," and he goes, "Do you think I'm a cowboy?"
That's great.
Yeah,
there were obviously cuts from characters they couldn't include or they had to change. I think they wanted to bring in Jeep, the magical character, but then they I guess budget wise or something like that, or just it was too weird. So that's
That's
why
probably
Sweet Pea suddenly
yeah.
has little psychic powers, out of nowhere. We're like, what? All
Yeah.
right, sure.
Well, there's another famous character, the sea hag. But there's this mysterious old woman who delivers sweet
Yeah.
pea to Popeye and Olive, and so I guess that was the sea hag. But yeah,
And
he
Sweet Pea was the director's grandkid, right?
yes,
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
yes, which is
Well,
a great
And I
great
love that scene where you meet him because he's obviously crying. And again, you can see that it's improv because he starts crying and Robin Williams starts making up lines to calm him so he can read his line. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
actually cuter.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
So
great.
there's a favorite fanfic tag of mine called "Accidental Baby Acquisition," and I kept thinking of that during some of these plots.
Well, it did remind me of the
That's
great
great.
baby from Willow.
Yes.
Along
Laura.
Yes, which we covered very early on in the Comic Beat Insider oeuvre, but which was one of the all-time great performances by a baby. Period.
Yeah.
But
hands
I
down.
would say Sweet Pea's a pretty close second. Some great
Yeah.
acting by that baby.
That baby's pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Something we didn't mention about the singing was just going over my notes here, is that Altman had the cast singing a lot of the numbers live on
Yes.
set, which especially back then was very unusual practice, So that's why they had to like really dub over everything. Just to
Now,
really
how
capture
do they? Let me ask our musical theater experts. How do they
Yes.
normally do the singing in these
Oh,
movies?
it's lip syncing.
You pre-record it and then you
Yeah.
lip sync the crap
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and most like singers can lip sync themselves really well, obviously, because it's them singing it. So yeah,
Right.
that's why some of the actresses or actors from the 40s, like we did at State Fair, things like that, they must have really practiced because some of them got really good at because some of them had like for instance from State Fair, I forgot the actress who had that one girl sing for her in every film she did because everyone thought she was amazing. Like no, that's someone else singing. She got really good at it because she had the same person she was dubbing
Yeah.
for like.
Well, that's why it was such a big thing when the Les Mis movie came out because they were recording it live. They had, they had keyboard and everything on set so they could get it live each take.
Mhm.
And that's why it was so exhausting for the entire cast and why it was different every time because they were doing it actually live on camera, which isn't usually done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But they had
Altman and Evans in a coke fueled
Yeah.
fury, like, let's do it live. Come on, guys. That's great.
well, they
all
also
right.
had to redub a lot of Robin Williams' line because he was
his mumble, yeah.
mumbling and they couldn't hear what he was saying. I mean, it's still.
I'm just talking. I'm mumbling in my breath here. What do you mean you can't? Come on, get doing the thing.
So anyway, just to give a little bit of the plot of this movie, which
Yeah.
is it's thin. It's really just about the ensemble in the world of Sweet Haven. But Popeye arrives. He's immediately beset by the tax collector who is taxing him for every single thing he does. And in this opening scene, Popeye's wearing a big old Nor'wester slicker that covers his enormous forearms because the fake forearms that they had made for Robin Williams were so bad at first that they could not show them. So he had to wear long sleeves. They eventually got some new Italian forearms
These
for him.
Italian ones.
Yeah, that were more and I mean, thank God this.
I mean, I thought he worked out. Like those arms were great. They looked man. They were. Like he's really working out.
They were hairy and gross.
I do not think Robert Altman was very interested in special effects or.
What do you mean that octopus? Come on.
Well, we'll get to that, but
Yeah.
in the fight scenes here, the dubbing is so bad, right? Like, and they don't even. He doesn't even cheat. Like, they're the worst fights. Like, you see the miss, and then there's this cartoon sound effect that isn't even at the same time as the fight. So, I mean, whether they ran out of money or time, but I mean, clearly Altman did not care about action. Very much because the fight scenes are really
well,
bad.
they definitely ran out of money because they built that giant set, as we said, is still there, known as Popeye Village, and they also built like living quarters for people there within that village. But they built so much stuff they didn't even use. Some of it, I don't want to say a lot of it, but definitely some of it they didn't even use. It was like,
and they bought all these
part.
they bought all these ships and sank them so they'd have real, sunken ships. And I mean, I'm always happy to see a movie that's made during the era of practical effects because now they just CGI the hell out of it, and it would not be as amazing as it is. And the other thing was he hired all these circus performers to be in the background apparently, and now I'm I'm blanking on the name of the circus, but apparently it was the precursor to Cirque du Soleil, and that's why you can watch this movie, and you'll see, and I can see why as a child you would be, if it hit
Yeah.
you the right way, you'd be so into it because you would see, there's something going on at every second, which I can't believe Jimmy
It's a
didn't.
huge cast. It's
Yeah.
giant.
Yeah.
There's way too many people in that town.
And every single scene, there's just
way too many people in that oil household too. It's like, who happened? Like, what is happening? There's like 40 people that live there. Half of them are relatives.
Well, Popeye, once he's taxed to bits, is with his bindle over his shoulder, is looking for technically it wasn't a bindle, by the way, I know that, but he is looking for a place to stay, so he wanders through this town, and we meet more the piano gag, we meet more of the bizarre inhabitants of Sweet Haven, and he comes to the oil boarding home and says they have a room available, and he comes in, and then we meet the glorious, amazing, incredible
great entrance
Shelly Duvall. And I mean, Shelly Duvall as Olive Oyl is just one of the all-time great casting, perfect performer, and she plays the hell out of it. She had apparently been through the nightmare of The Shining with Kubrick, and which she had PTSD for the rest of her life, and maybe being trapped on Malta wasn't much better, but it had to be better than Kubrick. Altman had to be better, but she really owns this role, and she was very proud of it and talked about how she felt empowered as Olive, and we see Olive like trying on these hats. She's like, ugly, is it ugly? And it's like, I can't get engaged in this hat, it's ugly.
She's great. She's awesome. Just watching her and Robin together were really, really
good. Oh
great.
Yeah. If you asked me to sum up my memories of this movie in one image, it's near the end of the film when she's stuck in the funnel.
Yes, oh my gosh, yes.
Her head, and that's the whole movie.
Because it's so funny. Like she's just stuck and hilarious, screaming like, "Oh no! Oh!"
Yeah. Don't get fresh. Oh.
She's such a main character, and all you can see is basically, hey, it's a precursor to the Zoom, right? All you can see.
Great.
But I mean, she says that they called her Olive Oyl as a kid, and obviously physically she was the character. She has the hair with the little bun up in the back, and she's just, her dialogue throughout this is just
skinny like Olive Oyl. Yeah,
she's just trying on these outfits and wearing this red and black. She just looks incredible. But Popeye is given a spot in the oil household, and then we meet there's about 80,000 people who are also boarding there, including son Castor, Castor Oyl, who's from the comic strip. And we learned that Olive is about to be engaged to some fellow named Bluto, and we follow Popeye to his room where he has this whole monologue about finding me pap. And he says it. I love this when he's talking to this photo. It's like, Pappy, talking about just gonna find me Pappy. He used to do all these things, and then he kisses the photo and he puts it up, and it just is the words "me Pappy."
Yeah. There's a lot of
which later, when not to give it away, but when there's his Pappy appears, he has a frame and it just says "me son."
Yes, beautiful callback. Yeah.
I was like, this is hilarious.
It's a great little bit they tease throughout the film, of course, just like in the cartoons would happen, was where Popeye would get his spinach and make him strong. But throughout they tease a little bit, like, I hate spinach. Like in the very beginning when he's walking through town, the guy's trying to sell him vegetables. Like, what is spinach? No.
Well, he's trying to.
He hates it. Yeah.
He goes to buy some carrots. He's like, I need me vitamins, and don't you want some spinach? No, I need carrots. I need me carrots. And the way that he talks with all these pronunciation is from the comic strip.
Yeah.
And because Popeye talks that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which is a little hard to understand, but it's just so delightful. And again, Pfeiffer, I'll give Pfeiffer credit for that. Like, who really did what on this movie is probably lost the sands of time, unfortunately.
Sure. And then we get the rousing group song, "Everything is Food," which makes, I'm like, no, I don't get any of this. Why are we depressingly singing about, I don't know what's happening here.
I mean, Oliver made a great food song, but
fantastic.
Yeah,
yes.
but not this. food, glorious food, but this was like food.
This is the saddest song about food I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
Yeah, and then we meet, Popeye has a fight. It's the first fight.
Oh, well,
Dennis,
we meet Wimpy.
yes.
Wimpy, yeah,
we
Wimpy,
gotta talk
famous.
about Wimpy. Wimpy's the best.
Yes, Wimpy. Wimpy's famous from the cartoons. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. You know,
And,
that whole
and
thing.
also the origin of Wimpy's Burgers is Wimpy
Yes.
from Popeye the comic strip, because
Yeah.
that's it. He just loves to eat burgers. Played by
Oh.
Paul Dooley, a great performance.
Yeah, one little thing I want to point out, which people don't believe, when they used to spell ketchup, catsup. Remember
Yes.
that, guys? Us old people remember that. People are like, what are you talking
Yeah,
about?
of course.
Catsup.
Yeah.
And before we move on too long, I want to say, one thing I had weird thoughts about this movie was Robin Williams is a blonde.
Yeah,
That's
it's very
really
off-putting at
cool.
first. You're like, that's really, yeah, for sure.
And I mean, impinging on his intelligibility, which I can't even say in this film, is that he's got a pipe clamped in his mouth the whole time.
Yeah.
He's squinting, he's got a
challenge, yeah.
pipe, and he's like, and it's like, no wonder you can't understand a word he says,
Yeah.
and he's again, this is his first movie role.
Yeah.
I think he's perfectly cast. Like,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
imagining, I mean,
For
it's
sure.
a fantastic.
Could you imagine Hoffman as?
I mean, just he's so good in this, and it's so perfect. And his, like I said, his youthful energy in it is.
He was like 30 at the time. I think,
Yeah, but he's just giving it his all, and obviously.
I mean, he got cast because of everyone that came in. He was the only one
Who did the
doing
voices, yeah.
a absolute perfect cartoon Popeye while improvising and being a smart aleck.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
he was the only one that did that. Like, Dustin Hoffman, wonderful actor. He doesn't
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
improv, fun comedy range that if it's not scripted. He just does not.
Yeah.
That's why. And Robin Williams was, straight out of Juilliard. So he's taking it very seriously, even though
Yes.
that's why he's so genius at it. He's got it broken down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He probably was
reportedly,
struggling.
this and Mork and Mindy are probably two of his most beloved roles, and he didn't. I mean, he was bad mouthing him later in life.
Yeah.
right? Because
Which is probably why he didn't do another musical.
I
maybe.
didn't,
that.
I didn't find any interviews where he talked about Popeye.
Yeah.
Was he unhappy with it, or
Oh.
what was his later
Well, he
attitude
called it
toward it?
Stalag Altman.
Well,
so-
I know,
yeah,
but that
yeah.
could have been just making the movie. Obviously could have maybe not a nice experience, but
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? It couldn't have been easy making this movie. Like,
Yeah. And
again,
also, your first movie, you're like, oh
Yeah.
God.
yeah.
This big break, and then suddenly, like, oh, this is what I
Yeah,
got.
and then I mean, it was panned, of course.
Yeah.
Although it was the reviews were mixed. Some people got it when it came out.
Yeah.
But so we see Popeye in action with these horrible fight scenes and sound
Yeah.
effects, and then I'm probably forgetting some little bits. Jimmy's always better at remembering the actual thing. The
This
movie.
one, meh.
Yeah. But then we see Olive preparing for this big engagement party with Bluto. And I don't think we've seen Bluto, and this is Paul Smith, a big burly guy. He's perfect. Again, he's just so perfect as
Yeah.
Bluto. He's got the big beard, and he's glowering. His facial
I
expressions.
don't understand why they got someone to sing for him when even that person didn't really sing. It's like he could have.
All he says is,
done
"I
it.
mean."
Yeah, exactly. It's like
The
okay,
lyrics, genius.
Yeah.
Genius work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus
I
Christ.
do like how anytime Popeye fondly talks about his pappy, he's got all these great little stories where you realize, oh, your dad's terrible.
Mhm.
Where he's like, oh, he'd always put me up, bounce me on his knee, and then when I came down, he wasn't there. And I'm like, oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. His little
Yeah.
lines.
Well, that does give I
Mhm.
mean, as Johanna says, it is a story about, dads and sons, because obviously, baby Sweet Pea becomes the child, and Papa gets a chance to be the good
Except he
father.
keeps calling himself a mother. Well, as soon as he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, he was
that's
calling
great.
himself a mother.
Mother.
Mother, yeah, I'm like, mutter.
So
Although
why?
I do think the accidental baby is a good idea to keep Popeye and Olive together because they don't like each other.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So they
Well,
she
keep
hates him
the
at
film
first.
because they keep calling it theirs as though
Yeah.
now we're just all a family because we just
Yeah.
happen to be in the same place at the right time.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Yeah.
we see Olive prepping for, this engagement party with Bluto, and the song that Erin so loves is like, And he's large.
How did that make that in? Watching
Yeah,
it with
me too,
adults, I'm
exactly.
like, wait a minute.
For a kids film, maybe.
And he's mine.
Yeah. But most cartoons had lots of adult humor in it, to be
Yeah.
fair. So yeah.
Well, he is large. He's a big guy.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Big boots, big shoes.
She's talking about his penis.
I don't.
Anyway.
I that could be part of what she was talking about. But I
yeah.
mean, she the big burly husband.
I don't think any of this went that deep. I don't think any of it did. Absolutely none. I think he's a big fat guy, and she's like, "That's who he is."
Yeah.
That's
He's
it.
No, not her. I'm
fact
talking
that
about
she's
Nielsen.
trying to
I'm talking about Nielsen. Yeah.
Yeah. The fact she's trying to talk her friends into why this is a good idea, and they're all like, "This is terrible." And,
Yeah.
but anyway, and then the next thing you see is she's running away from her own party.
Well, while she's singing this, she's secretly putting her stuff in a suitcase.
Yeah. Yeah.
Consistency is not a high point of this movie.
Yeah, but then
Yeah.
then there's kind of a heartbreaking scene where Popeye comes down, and the whole town of Sweet Haven is in the living room, and talking happy. They're so excited for this party, and then the minute Popeye comes in, they are, who is this guy?
Yeah.
We see him as an outsider. And it's a little sad, I have to say. I
Yeah.
thought that was a touching moment for him, and he just realizes he's not wanted, and he goes and wanders
He
off.
just mumbles his way out.
Mumbles his way out.
People on IMDb kept trying to compare this to the classic Western structure, which is very much you have to have the outsider who comes to town, shakes up the town, fixes, solves the problem for the town, but cannot be part of the town because he is outside of the organization and must go on. So
Yeah.
I suppose
Yeah,
there's something
makes
to be
sense.
said
That's
for
it.
Stops playing.
Yeah.
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
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 It is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Through all this, it's a good script. It has themes, and there is character development. Like the elements are there.
Yeah.
There's
I think the set design, costume design, all the quirky little set details for me is what kind of sets it apart and makes
Yeah.
it like shine. That to me is like
Yeah,
the
that part
star of everything besides like Robin
yeah.
Williams and Shelley Duvall.
I am, but I'm also saying, this, we picked this movie for comic book movies ahead of their time because, when it came out, it was a famous flop.
You
But
picked this movie. But anyway.
I know I picked this movie. I'm sorry, Jimmy. Okay.
It's okay.
And but now it's being rediscovered. Altman, it's being given its place at Altman's oeuvre, and it's kind of like all the things that we're talking about are kind of being reassessed, and it's considered, it's a mishmash, yes, but it's also it's got some lasting charms to it. And,
Yeah.
and I was just trying to point out,
I was saying to Heidi before you guys logged on that at the beginning of the pandemic last year, I was like adding a movie musical of the day. We were all like in a weird place. So I was trying to I love movie musicals. So I think it was like April. It was either Amazon or Netflix had it on. And I was like, oh my God. So I put it on. And I could not believe my comment section of how many people love this movie. And it just hits them nostalgically more than they love it because it's a great film. If that makes any sense.
I think they remember it as kids loving it, like I did. Like, I love this kid.
Yeah.
But then if they rewatch it, I don't know. So we'll say.
What
I'm saying. I'd be curious to go back through your comments and challenge them all to watch it again.
But I'm trying to point out.
Maybe, but I think it has just a weird, impenetrable, it's so nostalgic that you have the things of it you love, which means you just love
There's
it.
plenty of stuff like that for me. I get it.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
What I'm trying to point out, though, we did Mystery Men a couple weeks ago, which is another movie I picked. So I picked movies that are not perfect movies by far. And I think that's.
I always pick perfect movies.
Yes, and Jimmy does. Jimmy tends to pick perfect movies. All right, fine.
Not true,
But
not true.
no, I think it's interesting to discuss movies that are flawed. And we all agreed that Mystery Men had a horrible storyline. That went on too long and doubled back and everything. I'm just trying to say that this film has a pretty tight story. Like if you break it down into what happens and how each scene advances, what there is of it, and it has a theme. And it has, real things that impact the characters. Popeye search for his dad and all that, which is a common also seafaring theme, by the way, also the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, obviously. But I'm just trying to say, if this suddenly had, bizarre scenes where, Popeye goes to a diner and talks to a waitress, I'm just saying it's
900 times.
900 times.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to say that I think the fact that the story is cohesive is probably why it is a beloved, why people said, I love this movie. I have nostalgia.
But also, it's so visually interesting.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Absolutely.
It is coherent all the way through visually in terms of carrying through what it's doing. There is always something to see on screen, which is very unusual for me. Normally, I'm more listening to movies, paying attention to the stories than I am paying attention to. And this is definitely one you want to pay attention to the screen.
Yes.
And that's what
I don't necessarily agree about the whole coherence, because I think it's more going back to Joanna's first point, is that it's a series of vignettes that kind of tie together. So it's like, to me, it wasn't one solid thing. Like, because suddenly, when Skip Hitchens said, like, oh, there's a boxing match. What? Where did this come? Just like things just happen. It seems for no reason. You're like, oh, well, there's with the big dude in town. There's a boxing match. And it's like,
but that's very much the Depression era. I've got to raise the money. How am I going to do it? Popeye a chance to show his ability.
Well, now let me go back. Let me go back
sorry,
for a
I
moment.
jumped
No,
ahead.
because okay, so let's go back to that engagement party.
Yeah.
Because after Olive Oil introduces Bluto with his, great deathless lyrics that he's large. We finally meet Bluto, and he says, I'm mean. So we learn he's large, but he's also mean.
Yeah.
All right. And that's why Olive scarpers out the window with her suitcase. Okay. And then
it's more than mean. I think he's terrified.
Yeah.
I think he is like
Bluto.
He has the entire town terrified, and he's gonna murder somebody. It's awful.
Yes, because when he finds out that Olive has scarpered, he destroys the oil home.
But even before that, when he's doing this, she loves me not. The entire party is terrified of him.
Yes. Oh yeah,
Pluto's back into the tax collector. That's the actual political development of the movie. He's the enforcer for the unseen Commodore, and they are holding the town hostage.
Okay.
It's basically like a company.
So I'm giving Jules Pfeiffer and Robert Altman two great storytellers. I'm just trying to give them a little bit of their due in this film, because, where does the boxing theme come from? As Johanna says, it's a staple of the Depression era movies. And we learn that Bluto is this horrible, enforcer. He wrecks the house, and now the oil family's in terrible jeopardy. And Popeye, so Olive escapes. She meets up with Popeye, who's been exiled from the party.
She bumps into him and says he bumps into her.
We start to see, a little bit of, dislike turning into romance, perhaps, between the two of them. I mean, the chemistry between Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall. Oh, it's so great. So, but now the house is destroyed. So yes, then we see this bizarre ship come in with this giant fighter guy, and but Castor is trying to take over for the family. Like he's accepted in Sweet Haven, the son of the oil family, so he's going to fight this guy, and of course he's moited. And so
the guy is like 7 feet, 300 some pounds.
Yeah, and then also Linda Hunt as his mother.
We see him in we see him throughout the scenes. They were in the party scene, of course. They were Oxblood, Oxheart is in there.
Yes, I was just trying to another character, but now Popeye comes in, and he hasn't got his spinach yet, but he does.
He's a good fighter, though.
He's a good fighter. Horrible sound effects, horrible blocking, but he is able to defeat Oxblood, Oxheart, and now he's becoming more accepted by the town and the oil family, right?
Because he's defeating the bullies.
The bullies. So I'm just saying, everything is happening in this movie for a reason, story-wise. Okay.
And the only problem is that it all took a little too long.
Yes. Yes.
Had we just sped it up a bit, just a little bit, I think it would have been a lot more fun.
Yeah. But there's a great moment when they after they get the kid, discover the kid, they start like talking about it, and they meet, like you said, they immediately are like, he's ours, And there's that great shot. I'll give Altman this. A great shot where they open the door and they're standing there like this little family, and then Bluto sees them. It's like, oh shit, it's on.
Oh yeah.
That's a really great shot. Just him there like.
The later. Well, okay. Now there's a long digression to the racetrack, and we learn about Sweet Pea's psychic abilities, but So, but I will say in that they're at this racetrack, which is only little metal horses, but like they open the door and you see Bluto's face coming out. I'm like, oh, he's great. I love him.
Yeah.
But anyway,
House of Ill Repukes.
We've got some money to save the oil home, but then somehow they learned that Sweet Pea is psychic. And they said, oh, did you know that
Yeah,
Castor
Olive's saying this. Yeah.
would win the fight, and he's like, gurgles no, and I was like, did you know Popeye would survive the fight? And he's like, yes, and then they like, oh,
And Wimpy notices this. Wimpy the gambler notices like, oh, may I borrow your baby? I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for your baby today.
We're good today.
yeah, and then so then we get another long. The horse racing scene was a bit long. I'm not going to argue that. Where Wimpy steals the child, and somehow in the village of Sweet Haven, there's this horse, gambling den where
Yeah.
There's also floozies in this.
Yes, there's
Yeah, it's a house of
some
pukes.
yes, yeah. You might catch a venerable disease.
Yeah, better yes.
Venerable.
His leg.
Oh, it's great. It's so great. But yeah, like people, it's like this. I guess they have these at actual carnivals where it's like a horse race with these little metal horses on a track and they spin it right. And so, but Wimpy is using Sweet Pea to predict the winners, and he's winning big.
Yeah.
And getting the money. And Olive and
do you know how many hamburgers that is?
Olive and Popeye show up to rescue Sweet Pea, but then Olive sees, Sweet Pea is pretty accurate. Let's make some money out of this. Popeye just doesn't
ain't having it. That's the thing about Popeye. He's got a great moral compass. He
does.
I do what's right.
And maybe his own poor treatment by his pap makes him want to, treat Sweet Pea. He wants to be the father to Sweet Pea or the mother.
You want to be the mother. Come on, the mother.
The mother.
At the end, he flat out says the good always wins over the bad. And this is moments when I was reminded, I think they are aiming this at kids because they are saying things flat out. Like, the good wins.
Yeah.
But then it's sort of like, did he really believe that all the way along? I don't know.
Yeah. There's a great moment. I think it took place in the little parlor, or if anything, where Robin Williams and Shelly Duvall's faces are really close to each other.
Oh yeah.
And they have that scene. I'm like, I wonder how many takes that took. Because you could see them at almost one point, Shelly almost cracking up. It looks like, because Robin probably did his best to try to make her laugh, but what a great, like they were that close. I love watching scenes like that where actors get that close because it's so uncomfortable to see them get through it. It's really funny.
Yeah,
it works really well.
So Bluto now realizes that Sweet Pea is his meal ticket. So this is where I get a little vague. It got a little, but we do have the great scene where Shelly Duvall sings, "He Needs Me," and
I have a note on "He Needs Me." Erin, you might be able to back up this. As I listened to it, and as the music is terrible, I hated it, but it just sounds like, oh, this kind of sounds familiar. Doesn't it sound a little like the American Dream from Miss Saigon?
Okay, a little bit.
Like it just had a little bit of money. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess was it Schoen and Schoenberg, one of those guys where they wrote it. We're like, big fans of this movie.
It's not a bop, but I've been singing it all day.
Now,
you know what I mean? It gets in your head because it's so repetitive, and you're like, next thing you know, like, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me.
It has that melody. Like if it's like just a little bit faster in Saigon, where it's you slow it down. I'm like, kind of similar. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're musical nerds. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
But I mean, look, is it a very poorly written song? Yes.
I mean,
is Shelly Duvall's performance incredible? Yes.
I love her in it because it's so sweet.
Yeah.
It's so sweet and so magic, and she's just so into it.
She takes these dumb, repetitive lyrics and makes it something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's true.
That's the character that really works. We're like, oh, we don't need to be a good singer here. It's just like a.
And we did a whole month of musicals, and obviously we talked about what the psychology of a song is, and how they reveal the character, they show what the character is, they show. None of the songs in this lyrically show anything. They state it right. I am what I am. I mean, he's large. We're Sweet Haven.
Everything is food.
It's all so declarative, but Shelly Duvall is showing us what olive oil is all about in her performance. And I think it's probably the most famous, moment from this, partly because of the Punch Drunk Love connection, I think. But it is
the most. It's weird. Somehow that song also showed up. There's a new documentary about Heaven's Gate cult. And somehow that song is in it. And it ended up on one of my message boards today where they were talking about that song today. And I was like, oh, by the way, going to talk about Popeye today.
Wow.
So funny that everyone's just now noticing He Needs Me is also like, I think it's the most well-known song because of that, because of her, because of what she did to it.
That was the only one I think that sounded familiar. Maybe that's why I made this psycho connection to it.
I've heard it in commercials. I've heard it, like, it's been in things a lot, especially recently.
That's the benefit to writing something that's really, really obvious.
Yeah. So Bluto carries out his scheme to kidnap Sweet Pea, and then we have the big shocking revelation. And I will say the movie dragged a bit in the middle third, and then I told you guys, it's like, so I'm watching this movie and literally the internet went out in my house just as it was reaching this exciting part, and I was like, oh my god,
there was a huge outage in New York yesterday.
Oh yeah. So anyway, Bluto gets Sweet Pea and goes to his ship, and inside we meet the Commodore, who is Poop Deck Pappy, played by Ray Walston, with a squint and a pipe. We know immediately this is Popeye's father. His pap has been found, and my God, Ray Walston, like, Robin Williams is impossible to outplay, but Walston did it. I mean, he just bam, he is so like on it, and it's like
I almost wish he was in it more because it gets instantly more fun the second he hits the screen.
And also I will say, like, Williams probably, it's his first movie. There's a lot going on with the pipe and everything, and Walston nailed it. He knew how to do it, like he to enunciate, to have the pipe, to squint. I mean, he's just he's more experienced, and he takes it, kicks it up.
He took that. He was chewing that scenery. He took that character and ran with it. He's like, I'm gonna bulldoze anybody in this scene because I've got this character down.
Oh yeah, and so and then Bluto's trying to get Sweet Pea to tell him where the treasure is, because of course there's a treasure. It's a seafaring town, and Poop Deck Pappy has a treasure, and I'm not quite sure. We understand that Bluto's been running the town on behalf of the Commodore, and why he won't tell him where the treasure is, not quite that clear, but Sweet Pea's in danger. That's what we need to know. And Olive and Wimpy discover this, and they spy it, and they go to tell Popeye, and he's like, we found your Pappy and Sweet Pea, and it's like, oh, both of them. And Olive was like, he's a crook, he's a kidnapper, he's the Commodore. And he's like, no, not me, Pappy. And so they finally convince Popeye to go to the ship, and Robin Williams meets Ray Walston, and oh my God, magic ensues.
But before that, there's actually a weird little rant where Walston goes on about how he didn't want kids, and kids are no fun. They're no great. And I'm like, what is this doing in this movie?
Yeah, and he kept denying that he's his son. Like, you're not my son. No,
well, that was going to be a Harry Chapin song called "I'm a Bad Father," but they didn't have time for it.
I will say
Harry Nilsson, pardon me.
What we're doing with Walston is a lot of what Duvall does later, which is that a lot of his best lines come when he's all tied up and being just treated as a human pinata. So he doesn't have ability to gesture. He's just using his, face and expression and voice. And so it's like, wow, this is what happens when you put really good people in comic movies.
Yeah. So, and you could, obviously Altman probably was, frustrated by Williams ad-libbing, but in the scene with Walston, you can see Williams cracking up. You can see that he can't stop smiling, and they're just riffing off of each other, and it's really wonderful. It's a wonderful plot point for the movie to see Popeye and his Pappy reunited, but also just two performers just hamming it up.
Just a couple years later, young me, again too young to be watching it, but Altman as Mr. Hand in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Of course.
I'm like, wait, is that the guy that was Pappy and Popeye? All right, well,
yeah. Of course, my favorite Martian. Williams and Walston both played aliens and great alien sitcoms. So
they had lots to talk about. Yeah,
they had a lot in common.
For sure.
So then Bluto absconds with Sweet Pea in this rickety little kind of a tugboaty thing.
The chase is on.
And the chase is on as all the characters, because no one could do anything alone in this movie. It has to be the whole town jumps onto another rickety kind of sea vessel, and a chase ensues out to Pirate Rock,
And like the
and-
random like Robert Libertini character, George Giesel, the rabbi, like just some random
Right.
rabbi, like just mix in the mix the whole time. I'm like, all right, sure.
yeah, everybody it's about the community. The star of the
Yeah.
movie is Sweet Haven, really.
Yeah, yeah.
And as Erin is saying, he's also kidnapped Olive, I should say, Olive and
Yeah.
Sweet Pea, and he stuffs Olive into this foghorn thing. I don't know what you really call them on
Yeah, it's so
a boat,
great.
but she's incredible. And then he rows off in a dinghy with Sweet Pea to get the treasure.
Mhm.
Little Pirates of the Caribbean action, and so there was supposed to be a big giant octopus, and
There
there
was, but it
was,
just
but they ran out. Now, so just to back up to the making of the movie, so Altman, wanting to avoid studio interference, doubtless, said, let's go to Malta, and where nobody could really oversee what was happening, and the stories that are lost of this Maltese making, but money was being spent, and Paramount. This is a Paramount and Disney co-production. The
Mhm.
80s. This was a bad period for Disney. So they were trying to recreate the black hole, the black cauldron, anyone, but
Mhm.
so this was a co-production, but the money is, you got this all-star, all the greatest of their day, but the money is ticking. And so finally, the giant octopus didn't quite work out, which you can see because it's really badly shot. And
Yeah, it's a mechanical. The mechanics kept breaking. Yeah.
yeah, and they apparently that was just too much for the studios, and they said, shut her down, octopus, nothing. We're calling you home.
Yeah.
That's it. You're done. And so they, could they have gotten the octopus working? Who knows? But I think it works. I think this ending works.
Worked. It still has the funny where all the tentacles are coming into the boat and where it's coming
Yeah.
up and Olive Oil tries to bite it and then it gets grossed out. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
It's-
it's great.
They
She
use
has
it
this line,
more
she's
as like a puppet, which I think
Yeah.
is better for it's not super scary,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, who is that down there? Oh, don't get fresh.
Yeah, it comes up by her face.
Oh, there's a lot of great underwater gags, and it's really, like I said, Altman didn't like action, but he did a good job with this, I think, just because it's again the character. But yeah, Bluto finds the treasure. Poop Deck Pappy opens it, and what do you think is inside? Cans of spinach.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the baby stuff that was Popeye's.
Yeah.
Pappy's baby shoes. And
It's his personal treasures, not
Me
actual.
son.
Yeah, and as Erin said, the photo that just says "me son."
Me son.
Oh, he did care.
It's not even a photo. It's a piece of cardboard in a frame. That's what
Yeah.
makes it great.
Yeah.
Just me son.
And finally, now Popeye's been rejecting spinach. Now Poop Deck tried to get him to eat spinach earlier, but he
hates spinach. That's the worst the word.
And he finally like opens the can and throws it, and hits Robin
He
Williams in the
apparently
head.
got really injured. He had to get
Yeah.
stitches for that.
But he finally downs the spinach, and now this is where
Well, Bluto forced it down because like
Yeah.
I don't like spinach.
Yes.
Huh? Forces
Yeah.
it down him.
Now, this is where I did feel a little bit like we got cheated just a tiny bit, because I think they ran out of money for the octopus, and they also ran out of money for Popeye's final form. So, because we see some giant, like he gets the spinach, then he goes underwater, and we see a giant arm come up, and
Yeah.
we see an underwater battle. We see the water roiling, a classic, low budget shortcut.
Yeah.
And then when he comes out, he's Popeye. So we never see him transform into his, supersized spinach form. And I would like to have seen that, but say la vie.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, so you could tell sort of was like, come on, guys, we gotta wrap up.
It
it's
looks like they
yeah,
did shoot
they
this
really-
movie in sequence, and so they ran out of money for the ending.
Yeah, they were ready to like, well, we got to go. We're getting called back. But yeah, but it was, it led it just like the cartoon. He always eats the spinach at the end. He always triumphs at the end. So it definitely followed this sort of.
Yeah, oh yeah,
cartoon line,
totally. And then the movie just ends.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay.
Just ends.
It really does. It's just like, okay, I'm done. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a Jackie Chan movie. You're like, oh.
There's no closing number. There's no hurrah, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing like, we see a shot of.
Because didn't he used to do, and as a podcaster, I was going to see it, but didn't he always kind of do this when he won something? Maybe. Like it was always like.
Probably like, oh, look at me.
I thought I remember that from the cartoons.
Yeah, maybe.
I was surprised that like at the end he wasn't like congratulating himself. Like
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I did look at him here on the guy. Yeah.
Well, after so much time spent with all these characters, I would love to have seen, the little triumphant return to Sweet Haven.
Yes.
But I guess they ran
And
out
the
of money.
town welcomes him back. Yeah.
Yeah, and that
I
would
mean, the
have been
town was still there. Like they already
Yeah.
built
And
it.
then there should have been a big town closing number.
because that would have really completed the Western theme, right, Johanna, where the hero is accepted.
No, the completion of the Western theme would be the hero riding off into the sunset to go
Yeah.
life elsewhere.
Yeah,
but,
like on his little dinghy back out. Like, oh, I see you guys.
yeah, but they didn't want that because now he's a mother.
Yeah, yeah. What's it saying? Him and
Gotta
Sweet Pea
stick
could
around
have,
and
you know,
raise
him
Sweet
and Sweet
Pea.
Olive could have boated off somewhere, dinghied off somewhere.
Yeah. So I wish we'd had just a little bit more closure, but
Like a song named Sweet Haven, Sweet Haven.
Yeah, or like it's over, the story's over.
Yeah, even because
over.
that's it. You're right because because they tell you how it is, and the movie's done, and now we're ready to go. Okay, great, guys, kids, we're done. Time to go. Time to go.
So, but we
tell
do
you
see
it is.
like Bluto is not vanquished. Like Williams gets the Popeye destroys the octopus, but Bluto just his clothes turn yellow because he's so scared.
Yeah,
and we
he's
see him.
yellow.
That's actually the ending. Is we just see Bluto swimming off into the
all yellow, swimming off into the who knows where.
That's an interesting callback to when you were talking about when the family reappears at the engagement party and Bluto's so mad that he sees them all in red.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right? So
that's
so
a great.
Turning yellow makes sense because
Yeah,
then you have it
for sure.
twice and then it's a thing instead of just what did they do this time?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some coherence to this.
Well, I
film.
gotta say, even though it's it did, like I said, 20 million and it made 60. I mean, it's kind of a success.
You know what else came out this year though that I was reminded of? Flash Gordon was also a 1980.
Yeah,
which
we covered here and one of my favorites.
Movie.
I love this film so much.
Yes,
yeah.
the second movie we ever did on Comic Beat Insider, Jimmy, and yeah.
But that one is also a tad incoherent with weird songs for no reason.
No, it's weird Queen soundtrack. That is Queen. That is amazing music in that. I'm highly going to disagree with you on that one. Yes.
Yeah, I think they were a little more on point.
No, what I was going to say is that so it made 60 off of 20. So a little bit of revenge against Annie because Annie had a $50 million budget and only made 57 million. So they kind of eventually went out over the
wow.
yeah.
Little nuts.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Because I remember as a kid seeing Annie, loving that multiple times. Maybe because I was familiar with the musical, but I remember watching it multiple times on TV and like this.
Because they didn't just make a movie, Jimmy. Like this thing was one of the first movies to be. I mean, I'm talking. I had after that. Annie from the movie Dolls. I had a mansion I could buy. I'd Miss Hannigan. I had a tea table where I'd make tea that was all Annie and matching chairs for my bedroom. Yeah. Like they merchandised the shit out of that movie, and everyone bought it. Everyone.
I do remember hearing people go like Albert Finney.
Sure.
I mean, Anne Reinking as Grace was fabulous, and
little Andrea McArdle,
but that was not considered an all-round success. I
didn't remember that.
By the way,
I was surprised.
directed by John Huston, another all-time great director.
Yeah,
perhaps
not best known for his musicals.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I do remember Annie doll because I had an Annie doll that was about yay big, and she Sandy that stuck in her pocket that was made out of 2 pom-poms.
Oh.
Did you ever do now? Erin did off Broadway. She did
Forbidden Broadway.
Forbidden Broadway, which they had. Did you ever do the Annie one where it's like I'm 30 years old?
I'm 30 years old tomorrow. Yeah, I did that every 8 shows a week.
And I haven't worked since I played Annie.
8 shows a week with my cigarette, really jaded.
Oh, that's so awesome.
It was a dream come true.
I love it. I love it. I would love to see you do that.
Still do it to this day. If there's ever like a cigarette around, I grab it out of someone's mouth and I sing the song. It's
I still have this like the first 2 Forbidden Broadway soundtrack. I saw it several times. It's so good. I may have seen you at some point. Who knows?
You might have. I was in it for a long time, probably.
So Bluto swam out to sea. The movie ended. Robin, what happens to everyone? Well, Altman went into a bit of a decline. The 80s were a bit of a lost decade for him until he came back with The Player about 1990, 91. And then he had a second great run. And, like I said, he's one of the all-time greats. Robin Williams, of course, went on to become one of the great superstars of his time. Never made another even pseudo musical though, which I wish he had. Maybe he just had such a bad time making this.
Yeah, I think if this was a better experience for him, he probably would have, but I think it scared him off enough to turn down any opportunities that came his way until it was Aladdin and it could just be his voice.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And Shelley Duvall, Fairy Tale Theater, which, I actually never watched it, but I know people Like, I know.
Well, I've got one more little tidbit for that.
I love
is I realized that this movie is the reason why Fairy Tale Theater happened, because they were stuck in Malta. Shelley Duvall had this idea. She threw it out to Robin Williams, like, hey, I have this idea for this thing. He encouraged her to do it and said, if you get it together, I will be the first one to sign up and be an actor on it. And he was in The Frog Prince in the very first episode of Fairy Tale Theater.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool that I think in a weird way that because they were all stuck in this kind of weird Maltese place, that more art happened because of it later.
Yeah.
And more jobs for all of them and friendships and all of that.
That makes sense, because think about it, Erin and I could tell you doing musical theater, you're sometimes stuck in housing with people and you're together. It's like it's not the real world. You're what we call the show world. And we just sit there. And
you create family.
Create a family. You guys start making like so many creative things came out of that. I know some of my friends wrote musicals or shows. I wrote stuff when I was doing, different things, and we all came up with creative, different ideas, choreography or other things like that. We're constantly working on craft and creating things. So it totally makes sense, especially if you're stuck in a town, like that for however many months they were there. Totally see that happening. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We done talking about.
Yeah, but no, that was
Yeah.
really great. Obviously a lot of these actors, as you say, appealed in fairy tale theater. Pfeiffer went back to being the greatest, a goat and doing his comic strips. And I'm not sure he ever wrote another movie after
I
this.
think he kind of walked out near the end of the film because he got so fed up with like Altman and Nielsen and all this stuff.
I don't think this was.
There were so many rewrites he had to do, and he was just like over it.
Yeah, I don't think he looks back on this movie too fondly. And the town, like I said, still exists. It's a tourist attraction.
Popeye Village. Yep.
There it is behind me. And
I saw some YouTube videos of people doing tours of it. It was pretty cool. I was like,
Harry Nilsson, whatever was going on with that guy. I mean, he kind of dabbled, but I think whatever was happening with these songs probably affected some of the rest of his oeuvre. And he died very young. He had a heart condition. And Popeye, of course, an enduring, indelible character. They talked about making a Genndy Tartakovsky was going to make an animated Popeye film, which would have been so great.
It got a lot. Yeah, I thought that was really going to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, it never did happen. And I guess have they made a Popeye movie since then?
There was one a few years ago.
Probably the most recent thing is that over the last few years, Warner Archive did some nice Blu-ray collections of all the Popeye cartoons.
Yeah,
I went to Warner's last decade, so you can get all the Popeye cartoons from the 30s and 40s. In nice packaging now. But
nice.
That's great. But I mean, there's always talk of a new Popeye this or a new Popeye that. He's still a great character, and we still. He still has cultural relevance.
Well, if there was a new Popeye film,
do it.
What would happen? I mean, so Johanna, if you ever seen any of these, what we do is I like to do modern day remakes of this. And because I'm Asian and I'm a former actor, and because Hollywood's so white, I like to recast them as mostly ethnic, usually all Asian versions of a new film. So I do have a new version. Not all the characters, just a little spattering of characters here and there. But let me start sharing the screen in a second. But I would think to start as Robin, he's a little older than Robin was when he played this, but he's already got the arms, and we love him from Train to Busan, Ma Dong-suk.
Yeah,
he's going to be the Indian. Look at those arms. Those are Popeye arms.
He would be a good Popeye.
He's going to be in the Eternals soon.
He's got kind of the squint going on.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, none of them really need to sing, so I'm not going to show any singing things, whatever like that. Next up we have Olive Oil. She's Korean American, but at the age of 15, like many of them, auditioned for this K-pop company, went over, became a member of Girls' Generation, one of the most famous K-pop groups in the second generation of K-pop. Tiffany Young, she's also just about to star in the Korean Chicago over in Korea. It opens next month, which I'm going to fly over it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I wish I could.
You could when this is all over.
I know, right? Yeah, she's playing Roxy in it, and she's awesome. And but she actually sings, so she could actually sing the part, As Bluto, you've seen him on Walking Dead. You love him. Cooper Andrews.
Ooh,
yeah.
Descent there. And just so you know, he's a little bigger now, but he does have he can build it up because there's a picture of him from a few years before. Yeah, he could be Bluto. Yeah.
Pluto.
Yeah, there you go.
Pluto all the way.
As Wimpy, who are our large and in charge lover of burgers, getting a little older actor, but I think he'd be great at it. Let's go, old pal Sammo Hung.
Oh yeah.
Come on, look at he kind of looks like Wimpy
Yes.
there. Look at that.
Right.
And then as Poop Deck Pappy, I want to put my Pappy, George Takei.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my boy. I love him. So as the taxman, I'm gonna gender switch because there's lots of male. It's pretty male heavy, this film. Looking a little taxish herself here, Lucy Liu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She'll collect your taxes. And then as Oxblood Oxheart, he's probably the #1 sumo wrestler in Japan right now. He is Hakuho Sho. I mean, that's our Oxblood right there.
Yeah.
And then she hasn't directed anything live action yet that I know of, but she's done the Kung Fu Panda film. So this is kind of a cartoony film. Let's give Jennifer Yu Nelson a shot at directing.
Fantastic.
There you go.
Nice. Very good.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Who's doing the music?
good question. Who could do the music here? Come on, Erin. Who we got here? We'll find somebody.
Yeah.
I'll get JYP. He's one of the famous.
Honestly, because it's Popeye, I think it needs to have a modern twist. I'm going Lin-Manuel. I think we need something fun.
Sea shanties are a trend.
That's true.
Sea shanties are in.
They're very in right now.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too much into this, but I do this for fun, the recast, but also because as an Asian and as an actor, it's like representation matters, and there's not enough Asian. It's great that Parasite won last year. Great to see Stephen Yeun and Minari get some love, and Chloe Zhao. But until that starts becoming the norm, I'm going to keep doing this because I want to celebrate Asians, especially with everything going on right now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We matter. So I just want to celebrate as much as I can. So.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you for indulging me every week and letting me do that. So yeah.
No, it just I mean, we did a whole not to go too far down this, but we did a whole month of kung fu movies, and guess what? These are amazing performers who are every bit like huge stars and worldwide, and let's take advantage of these incredible performers. So why not? It's great. It's a great exercise.
We are Kumandra. If you haven't seen Ryan the Last Dragon, watch it. It's a fantastic. My friend Kui co-wrote it. It's amazing. Go see it.
Yes,
for sure.
So
all right.
To wrap up Popeye, I would have to say, of all the films that we've covered on here, and like Jimmy always goes for really great, perfect movies. I often pick
not
movies.
True, not
no,
true.
But you do generally. I'll be like, oh, I never saw that. What a great movie, And sometimes I pick things that are, piffles or weird or problematic. Yeah. It's like I say, I love discussing.
It's a good discussion.
I will say, there's never been a movie that had so much talent and so much perfection, like perfect cast. The cast is just perfect. All-time great director, all-time great screenwriter. I think probably it is the songs that are the problem here. But
if it was not a musical, half an hour shorter, this one could have been a great film.
Yeah. Well, I think it is a great film. But I would say
this could have been a great film.
There's never been a movie where there was so much perfection, and yet the movie is so not perfect.
So discombobulated.
Yeah. I'll leave it at that. But I like I said, it's kind of, as Erin has said, Johanna, when I mentioned it, she was like, eager to talk about it. It definitely has been reevaluated and, stands as an important part of both, everyone involved's career, really. Jimmy, you are such a it just wasn't your cup of tea, or
I said I like parts of it. I like the actors, in it, and so, but it just was too discombobulated, too long. Music was terrible. I was just like, this is not what I remember. That's which you remember things from childhood. You're like, oh, this is great. You go back and often it's like, oh, this was still great. Other times you're like, wow, I was a child for sure. When I like that, and now an adult and sees with different eyes, like, no, this is not good. But hey, it doesn't matter. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff I still love. People are like, that's horrible. Great, your opinion. That's all good. It's all of our opinions. It's fine.
Erin?
Yeah, I mean, again, it hits nostalgically, but no, it's not a great movie, but I still enjoyed revisiting it and watching it because it just hits those nostalgic feels in me that I like from my childhood. But no, am I gonna, if have a busy day and it's on, there are movies I will sit down and be like, well, this is what I'm doing today now.
Yeah.
This is not one of those. I'm gonna be like, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's
This is not White Christmas.
Yeah.
it sure isn't. No, it is not.
It came on every minute. I'd watch it every day, but yeah.
But again, the icon that is Shelly Duvall, she is, especially in this movie, at her best, I think. So again, like things in this movie absolutely work. But as a whole, it does not.
Yeah. Johanna?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I do think that if people want to talk comic book movies, this is essential because I think it is an excellent comic book movie. It captures so much of the original source material, visually,
that's true.
and thematically and structurally. But is it a great film? No. I found my attention wandering, particularly during that third quarter, before it picks back up again. But no, I want to say thanks for having me be a part of this. It was fun.
Yeah, of course.
Yay!
Of course.
Musicals again. I want to do Silk Stockings.
Oh,
you got to stand in line. Everyone wants to do Silk Stockings. We can have
I don't
everybody.
think I've seen Silk Stockings.
Oh, it's a remake of Anoshka. It's a remake of Anoshka that has meta-level comments about what was happening in big-budget musicals of the 50s and 60s.
I don't think I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I do want to, if somebody out there wants to do this with the Popeye mumbles, as we said, he may be the originator of mumble rap. Somebody want to put some beats, just gather all the mumbles of Popeye, put some beats to it. We could have a hit song. Come on.
right?
Surprise. So yeah, until next time, Heidi McDonald, editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com. You can find me at all social media as ComicsAce, COMIXACE. And if you like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button and, give us our channel your support.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm Jimmy Aquino, the host and producer of the weekly comic news, TV, pop culture podcast, Comic News Insider at comicnewsinsider.com. And you can find me on all the socials at Jimmy Aquino, JIMMYAQUINO.
And I'm Erin Crosby. On Twitter, I'm at Erin Crosby Sings. And on Instagram, I'm at Erin Crosby Makes for all of your food, dog, and flower needs.
And hi, I'm Johanna Draper Carlson at comicsworthreading.com and on Twitter as Johanna DC.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for watching. And thank you, LCD Seagar, for creating Popeye, one of the all-time great characters.
Come back next time and do another.